Hi friends, in this video we are going to talk about keys. Keys is a pivotal concept in databases, and keys are the one that help you to maintain relationships among tables. And with keys, it is possible to ensure that you do not compromise on the integrity of data. So let us look at a scenario here, and from that let us derive the various keys that we can learn. So I have a scenario where I have two entities. One is a security entity, the other is a building entity. So in the security entity, the thing of interest for me is about the security details. So I have my security ID, security first name, security last name, security CPR, security mail ID, security gender. So these attributes describe this entity. I have another entity building where I have the building ID, building name, building rooms, which characterize my building entity. So in short, if you look at these two entities, I have 4 records. I have 5 of security and I have 5 of building. So on the whole, I have 5 entities in security, 5 entities in building. So in a table, we need an attribute that will help us to uniquely identify each tuple in the table, and that is what we call as a primary key. We call a primary key. So if you see here, we can default identify that the security ID can be a primary key. When we talk about the primary key, we should ensure that it will not have any null values. It is unique and distinct. It will not change in the near future. So all these characteristics must be there for the primary key, and with the help of the primary key, I can uniquely identify any record. For example, I say I want to identify the record 104, it is unique. I want to identify the record 102, it is unique. Okay, so this is a primary key. Let us look at the building entity. Can you suggest a primary key? Obviously, we'll have the building ID as the primary key. Now we have two distinct entities. How do we relate them? The question now appears about the scenario. The scenario here is we have a number of securities available in our security table. We have the different buildings that have to be secured in the building table. So we can relate them by having a key called as a foreign key. A foreign key is nothing but it is an attribute that is added to a table to ensure that it can be related to another table. So if you see here, for example, the building 10 is kept secured by the security 102. Okay. So the building 19 is secured by instance 101. The building 26 is secured by the security ID 104. And please remember, this is the foreign key. And when we talk about the foreign key, it is a key that will take values that are only available to the attribute it refers to. For instance, if security ID refers to the security ID here, it can take only of these 5 values. It cannot take any other 5 values. And you can say it can be 103 and again it can be 101. A security who takes care of 2 buildings. So this is with respect to foreign key. And in this table, you already have a primary key and you have an attribute called as mail ID. Obviously, we are sure that everyone has their own mail ID. And if we want this particular column to be unique, we have already granted primary key to another attribute, and therefore we can make use of a unique constraint and make this as an alternate key, which ensures that every entry here is unique. So this is what we call as an alternate key. So you have seen primary key, foreign key, alternate key. Okay. So now we have an attribute called as CPR. So in some countries we say CPR, in other countries we have something called as a social security number, in other countries we have something called as an Aadhaar number, and we know that they are all unique, right? So if you want to use this key, you can term this as your natural key. Okay, so this is a natural key. Okay, now we would like to talk about a concept called as composite key. Let me bring in a relationship called as many to many. Say for example, a scenario where the security can take care of many buildings. A building can be taken care of by n number of securities. So in this case, what do? I have a bridge entity. I have a bridge entity where I create a schedule. Say for example, I have a schedule entity. I take security ID attribute. I take building ID attribute. Okay, and I can match. For example, 101 takes care of building 10. Okay, and 102 takes care of building 21. 103 takes care of building 9. Okay, so we say here the security ID and building ID combinedly form a primary key. So this security ID is the foreign key that refers to the security ID of security entity. This build ID is the foreign key that refers to the build ID of building entity. And if you see, you combine these both, and they form the primary key for the schedule entity. So here the key consists of two attributes, and therefore we call this as a composite key. In real life scenario, what happens in the month of March? The security ID with 101 may be taking care of building 10. Okay, and again for the next month, if you are going to allot the same entry 101 for 10, now it is a repetition which goes against the integrity of data. So you may add another attribute as month. Say for example, this can be March, this can be March, this can be March, and this is April. So now this record is unique. So now you make all the three attributes as the primary key. So now your primary key is composition of three attributes. Again, if you see in the next year, a same repetitive data may come. So you may add the year. Again, you will make the primary key as 4 attributes. So to avoid this complexity, you have a key called as a surrogate key. So this surrogate key may help you with auto numbers, and it is unique, and it's an alternate for your composite keys. You should understand that the surrogate key has got meaning only within the database, and for the external world, it has no meaning. Okay. Now comes the interesting concept of a candidate key. So if I look here, I have given the primary key as a security ID. I have security CPR. I have security mail ID. So these are all my candidate keys, and one of my candidate key is chosen as the primary key. So when I talk about super keys is nothing but, even though you know the primary key is assigned to security ID and it can uniquely identify every record, you can also add security ID and security first name. You can combine these both as a primary key, right? Even if you combine these both, this uniquely identifies every record. You can combine these three as another key, or you can combine these three as a primary key. So the superset of primary keys is what we call as super keys, right? Super keys uniquely help to identify records or tuples in the table, and you should also understand that the super key is nothing but a good candidate key along with unnecessary attributes. In short, a primary key is a candidate key, and in combination with others, it is also a super key. So this is about the various keys that are in database, and being a pivotal concept, you need to be well thorough with the keys so that you can learn database in a full-fledged manner. Thank you.